Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Scott Stringer, New York City Comptroller. I'm joined by tenants from the New York City Public Housing Authority, Smith Houses, and Marjorie Landau, our Deputy Controller for Audit and Investigations. Thank you all for being here. A little over 3 years ago, Superstorm Sandy slammed into New York, uprooting hundreds of thousands of city residents and devastating this town. NYCHA residents were among the hardest hit. 402 buildings were damaged. 80,000 NYCHA tenants lost heat, hot water, electricity, and elevator service, including many of the tenants here at Smith Houses. 80,000 NYCHA tenants lost heat, hot water, electricity, elevator service. The storm was terrible, but NYCHA's response was even worse. Report after report laid out the painful details, showing families trapped, hungry, cold, and in extreme distress. For NYCHA, it was a study in dysfunction. And for NYCHA residents, it was a living, breathing nightmare. Fast forward to today. I am releasing an audit that asks if NYCHA is prepared for the next big storm. And the answer, sadly, tragically, and unbelievably, is no. In a crisis, it's essential for NYCHA to have up-to-date information on where the most at-risk tenants live, so they can deliver emergency services and evacuate residents if needed. So we looked at the agency's plans for assisting tenants with disabilities in an emergency, and the audit found that property managers didn't have accurate emergency contact information for 80% of tenants who use wheelchairs or life-sustaining equipment such as oxygen. They didn't have any emergency contact lists on hand for tenants with other needs. So if you're a NYCHA resident who uses a walker or a cane to get around, you'd be on your own during the next superstorm. Same thing if you have a vision or hearing impairment. And even those tenants with mental or psychological disabilities simply don't figure in the authority's current emergency preparedness plan. When it came to preparing staff for an emergency, we found NYCHA hadn't taken its responsibility to hold emergency drills seriously. They had no defined plan for training and only scheduled drills on a sporadic basis. NYCHA was unable to tell our audit team exactly who would be in charge in case of an emergency. And in direct violation of NYCHA's own policies, not one of the sites we reviewed had a staffing plan to maintain essential services during an emergency. NYCHA also doesn't have any plan to get its employees to work. If public transportation is shut down, then we're fresh out of luck. The Housing Authority also seems to be having a very hard time keeping track of its emergency equipment. The authority was unable to track the generators it maintains at its 328 developments. The great irony is that NYCHA actually has plenty of generators, but their central office doesn't have any idea where they are, and the individual developments don't even keep an inventory of their equipment. And that embarrassing fact means that generators could sit useless and unused in the case of an emergency, leaving NYCHA residents in dark, unheated apartments after the next superstorm. Today, I'm here to demand that NYCHA gets this right once and for all. Now, let me be clear. We know that Superstorm Sandy tested this city. I was here in this community the day the lights went out. We had residents standing in soup lines, and we didn't know where the seniors were. We didn't know because there was no list. NYCHA wasn't prepared. The National Guard went into buildings in the dark, risking their own health, trying to track down people in darkness. We thought those were lessons learned, but this audit shows that's not the case. At NYCHA and across the city, employees and neighbors went above and beyond in their efforts to save individuals and families. But the lesson we learned is that we are always in the eye of the storm. During this audit, NYCHA executives acknowledged that the emergency preparedness plan is deficient. And they say they've started to create a new plan that will be rolled out over the next 5 years. 5 years. I do not have to tell you, storms don't take 5-year vacations, and they don't wait around for bureaucracy to get into gear. It's already been 3 years since Sandy, and asking NYCHA residents to wait another 5 years is truthfully, absolutely unacceptable. We need real emergency plans today, and we need NYCHA to get to work now. NYCHA's response to this audit is truly pathetic. They don't understand the gravity of this situation. Perhaps some of them should have spent more time out in the streets with the flooding and the seniors and the people who were disabled. We need to have an emergency plan that works, not another set of lame excuses. You know, this is our 7th audit of NYCHA because we want to help the hundreds of thousands of people who live here. We have been tough, and we've looked under every rock, and we've made NYCHA accountable. What is frustrating is they don't seem to get it because they plan for something that is so far down the line, it does not matter to the people who live in NYCHA today. So we offer this audit to let the public know that NYCHA's got a lot of work to do. They cannot excuse their way out of emergency preparedness. We're not going to let them get away with it. And to speak today on this issue is somebody who I've had an opportunity to know. She's the TA president for Vladeck Houses. I'd like to call up Nancy Ortiz. Nancy?
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for affording us this opportunity to speak as residents from public housing authorities and how we were impacted by Sandy and the lack of resources that we received by the New York City Housing Authority. As the Comptroller stated, it has been 3 years. We were told 2 years ago that they unveiled an emergency plan. Now they're going back to it. I believe the New York City Housing Authority is, I'm not going to say ill-prepared. I will say that they need to collaborate with other emergency agencies such as Office of Emergency Management, the New York City Police Department, and the Fire Department in combined efforts to create a viable and credible plan that will include the vulnerable population. And this starts between children and seniors. We have many residents who have mobility impairments, residents who rely on asthma equipment, rely on electricity to get many of their equipments for medical needs to move. And the New York City Housing Authority did not have a viable list, at least for my development, to get to the proper residents, especially those who were insulin dependent. I commend the Comptroller for creating this audit. I hope that the New York City Housing Authority can move forward and takes many of these critiques and puts into plan, and we do not wait 5 years to create an emergency plan. I believe if you do it the right way, you can do this in less than a year. Thank you, Comptroller Stringer, for bringing this to light, and I hope the New York City Housing Authority does move forward and considers the over 400,000 residents that rely on the lack of their emergency planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And again, I want to thank the tenants for coming out this morning.